Well, Michigan's Peter Hoekstra is not so sure of some of the things that Igor was pointing out. He is sure of this, though. Public outrage to all of this spending is what's out of control right now. And he told us last week when we were in Washington that the real response to the president's address to Congress would come on Saturday. He just wasn't sure how many people were going to show up.
The rebuttal may happen on Saturday. Let's see how many people are down here on the mall. Is it 500,000? Is it 750,000 people?
These are the Tea Party folks with this 9/12 rate. Do you think it's going to be substantial? Because you know how that's going to be dismissed in the traditional media, and that, you know, they were all put up to this and AstroTurf and yada yada.
I hope it's substantial.
Well, show if they did. How substantial was it, given the news accounts of the mainstream media? Were all of these not-so-mainstream Americans just disaffected and angry conservatives? Congressman, are you happy with the response from Saturday's protest?
Oh, absolutely. I think you not only did you have the Tea Party in Washington, D.C., but you also had Tea Parties around the country, again, uniting with the people who made the trip down to D.C. And, you know, listening to your first two guests in this hour, it's like, yes, I mean, they really point out the need, why you need a Tea Party and why this movement needs to continue moving forward.
All right, but, you know, the crowds that came to Washington to hear some in the liberal media tell, oh, very tiny, to hear some in the conservative community say, oh, it was huge. What was it? I hear anything from 75,000 to 1 million. I'm horrible at counting, folks, but when I see everyone lining up on the mall, you know, sandwiched like sardines, man, woman, man, it's a lot of people.
It seemed like there were a lot of people there. I was not there. I was home in Michigan, but it seemed like there were a lot of people there. But again, this movement needs to continue and needs to grow. You know, the president refuses to get down to serious negotiations. I think last week he gave 3 campaign speeches. He gave one in Cincinnati, he gave one to the U.S. Congress, and then on Saturday he went to Minneapolis. He refuses to govern and continues to throw out these broad statements about it's going to be budget neutral, there's not going to be illegal aliens covered, it's not going to cover abortion, and all of these types of things. And then when you actually read the legislation, you find out that there's a great disconnect between what the president is saying and what the legislation in Congress actually does. By the way, Congressman,
while I have you on that subject here, of course, you and I were chatting last week before the big speech, and your colleague Joe Wilson's getting a whole lot of grief. Now they're looking at censoring him in the House if he doesn't apologize again. What do you make of that?
Well, I think Joe's a very good friend of mine. Joe made a mistake. He's being held accountable for that. The president is an invited guest to the House chamber. We need to treat him with respect and those types of things. But, you know, now we need to get back to the substance. Joe has apologized to the president. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Now it's time to move forward and to get into the real debate as to the substance of what the president said on Wednesday night. From my perspective, what the president said on Wednesday night was very misleading, that he did not represent the bill that is moving through the House of Representatives.
Well, I've got you here, Congressman. There are these reports of a terror raid on your offices, or they're vague at best, but what happened? What's going on here?
There were some raids that took place in New York City. The administration is doing a very good job of keeping Congress informed right now as to exactly the substance of those raids, the reasons for those raids. I expect you know, that will become more public as we go through the week, but right now we're all just kind of sorting out as to exactly what it means, how serious was it. Before we react, let's just make sure we've got all the facts.
Well, was any threat even vaguely identified?
Well, I think if there wasn't some type of threat that had been identified even vaguely, you wouldn't have seen the kind of actions that took place today. But again, let's just step back. Let's make sure we've got all the facts before we reach any types of conclusions. But, you know, this is part of the new reality, Neil. We are going to continue to be faced with these potential threats, potential sweeps and these types of things as we move forward, because the threat from radical jihadists remains real. They want to attack us in the United States. Sometimes, you know, we may go off a little bit too soon. Sometimes,
but
you know,
was this linked to the Osama bin Laden tape that's out there right now?
What's that? I didn't hear that. Deal.
Was this any of this linked to this Osama bin Laden tape that was released? This 12-minute diatribe?
No, I think you know, we're just going to have to wait and see till we get the facts. And right now, I can't talk about it in any more detail.
Gotcha.
You know, the information is all classified. I've talked with my office repeatedly today about what was in the what was happening today. They've been kept fully informed. But right now, the information is classified. Sorry.
No, that's right. Congressman, thank you very much. Be well, okay?
Always good to be with you. Thanks, Neil.
Same here. Well, the White House gives Fox the